Most people have a preconceived ideal that they're just all real mean and crazy, and they go out handling them like that.
Hard to approach them, but if you can get close enough, they really, each of them had very strong individual personalities.
That horse will fight you because he has fought all elements to live, and he fought off animals, mountain lions, bear, whatever, you know. It's just in his nature to fight when something is really endangering him.
Some people discount their size, but most horse-using cultures that succeeded used horses about this size.
The old boys knew it because they claimed, you see, praise the big but saddle the small.
Genghis Khan rode a horse that was even smaller than these and conquered the world, so.
They are a lighter-made animal. They don't have the thickness. They still have the depth in their chest floor and all for their heart and lungs.
They're fairly deep-chested, but the chest is narrow, and that helps the horse, so when they get hot, they can get rid of the heat easier than a thicker horse.
Their flexion is tremendous from side to side. This allows them to be a very smooth ride, so that most of the shock goes to the legs, isn't translated to their back.
They can go for great distances without water. They're used to living in the desert. They're used to very dry climates.
Where a modern breed is generally speaking stronger in the hind quarter, our horse is stronger in the forequarter. In other words, we have front-wheel drive. And our front-wheel drive horses are able to pull up over inclines, handle rock, and give us a smoother ride in general.
They're sounder. You never hear of a Spanish Mustang having problems with their feet and legs.
Her little back is one of the very strong points of our horses. If you take a sawhorse and another sawhorse and lay a board across it, the further you take the sawhorses apart, the more likely the board is to rake if it bears weight. The same goes for their back. The shorter back gives strength. These horses are one in a million. They're Picassos, they're not screen prints. And I think that's why Frank Hopkins rode one.
What in hellfire? Let's go, brother.
General Sheridan told President Grant, he said, if all the big tribes of the plains ever unite, the Blackfeet, the Sioux, Cheyenne, and all the other several big tribes, he said, we're in trouble. The way they fight, their tactics of fighting, is about most of all their horse.
The Plains Indian tribes were so connected to their horses. You know, you find written things like every male Indian has 6 legs, 2 of his own and 4 belonging to his horse.
General Cook said if you can't catch them Indians in 20 minutes or a half hour, he said just well pull up because you ain't gonna catch them.
This particular horse can run all day or it can run all night. It was in fact like an endurance horse.
If you look back at any pictures of Geronimo, you see his horse in there? He fought the army with them horses.
These horses were the main reason that the Indians were so mobile and could not be stopped and handled. We knew we had them by firepower, we knew we had them by numbers, and yet they continued to evade us because they knew their country and their sure-footed ponies could take them places where we couldn't even go.
Chief Eaglehorn says that his nation's hoop is broken and scattered. The buffalo herds have been destroyed, elk and the deer are gone. And now the government is rounding up our wild horses, and they plan to shoot them too.
Most Americans know about government campaigns to exterminate the buffalo, to cut the natives off from their commissary, as it were. Very few people know that there was a similar government campaign to exterminate the Indian horses.
General Custer, after he wiped out an Indian village, he shot about 800 of the Indians' ponies, which makes sense from his point of view and from the government's point of view to subdue the Indians.
See, they knew they dismounted them Indians, they could whip them.
Many people wonder, well, why didn't the cavalry just take these horses if they had so much respect for them and knew they had to be eliminated because they were a superior breed? Well, there was a certain prejudice toward the small size of these horses.
They liked bigger horses. They liked to crossbreed Indian mares with some other stallion brought from the east.
And what they would do is go into some of these Indian herds in the wild They'd gun down the stallion and introduce a larger breed and bring that horse up in size. And that's essentially how we have our BLM Mustangs today. There was a real bifurcation between the BLM wild horses that most of us think of today and the Spanish Mustang.
So there are many breeds today with Spanish Mustang blood in them, but there are very few actually pure Spanish Mustangs left.
Bob Brislawn was my dad. He put a lot of time, 30 years, on the geological surveying the whole country, see.
Bob Brislawn saw what these horses could do, packing into the most rugged terrain he'd ever seen.
Somebody said, you know, Bob, to Bob Brislawn, said, that horse doesn't seem to have much hindquarter. And Bob says, well, if the front end gets there, don't you think the back end will come along?
When he went to start replacing them horses was when he really figured out that there wasn't any left.
He dedicated the rest of his life to culling what horses he could find all through the Indian country. He put a herd together.
Yeah, we started in 57. I think there was 12 or 15 we had here when we started it. Now there's, I think they claim about 3,600.
People like Robert Brislawn and Frank Hopkins are really responsible for these horses being around today.
He said, I'm not famous, I'm notorious. I said, I guess you was, Dad.
I've spent 60 years in the saddle, and I never rode another animal but a Mustang. Others were offered me. I rejected them. The reason is that I knew what the Mustang strain means. It means a horse that can keep going day in and day out, that doesn't need bandaging, fussing with, and that can win endurance races whether the rules are made to order or not. I've never known one